Welcome to this week's live stream of Retired Life in Mexico. No bull, ask me anything. We're going over also, sorry I didn't get to respond to you, Kai. I'm doing awesome today. Just a little bit of, I'm waiting for everybody to get in on the live. We have 14 people in the room. Hey, Daniel, how's it going? Today, like I said the last time, what I plan to do is kind of follow up on, because I was saying I'm going to do a kind of a subject every week. It's still Ask Me Anything about Mexico. We're still talking about Ask Me Anything, but I usually like to stick to a topic, and that topic is going to be what I did on a previous video. And I did a cost of living video that said Retired Life in Mexico, no bull, cost of living in Mexico, what people won't tell you. So basically, that's what we're going to cover today is the cost of living in Mexico. And I want to play a video for you guys. Hey, Bill, great to see you here. Marcus, Frederica. Actually, Frederica, I got your message through Facebook. And hey, Rick, I got your message, Frederica, and I intend on replying to it. I'm not sure if we're going to be in San Miguel that week that you're talking about, but we're going to try to get back. We're still in Monterrey right now. So I haven't forgotten about you, Frederica. Anna, beautiful weather today in Florida. It's beautiful weather here in Monterrey also. Usually in the summertime, it's not so much, but in the spring, it's pretty nice here. What I want to do is once we get a couple of more people in here, I want to play a video for you guys about the cost of living in Mexico. I'm getting ready to collaborate with an individual. He's a little bit more popular on Instagram. He's got over 28,000 followers on Instagram. He has a YouTube channel, and he's been uploading shorts. He does mostly reels about Mexico. This individual, I'm going to give you a little bit of his name. He goes by the name of Caribe Gringo. He is from Ohio, moved to Playa del Carmen, Mexico. He's an entrepreneur that moved to Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and he does a lot of shorts on Mexico, literally tidbits of information about Mexico, everything from the economy in Mexico to how is it dangerous in Mexico, but he does reels. And he did a reel that really caught my eye today, so I'm actually going to play it for you. And it's something that I always stress. It's exactly how I feel. Hey, thanks, Bill, for the super chat. I always appreciate that. And actually, I appreciate the recognition that I'm doing something right. So I want to play this video because it's a short. It might. I'm gonna switch right now in just a second. Hopefully, the audio will come out. It also has captions, so if the audio doesn't come out to you guys or it comes out bad, you can see the captions. Then I'll probably cut back really quick because the shorts they keep going. Another one. Oh, thank you, Bill. Oh my gosh. Bill, thanks. You're the best. Actually, Bill Dallas Lewis has a YouTube channel, and I drop in on his lives. I dropped in his live yesterday, and I'll tell you what, that guy, he's got a great channel. He's from Mazatlan, Mexico. Go check him out, and thank you. No, that's fine, Bill. You know what? The pesos messed me up. Don't worry about it. You know what? Like I said, I don't do this for the donations, but these donations do, help me in the sense that it makes me feel good that you guys are recognizing me and actually, thank you, Bill. Actually, you just showing up is the best thing. Every time I see you come on, Bill, it's a great thing. And so we've actually gotten together. Bill and I a couple of times to do an interview, and I lost his interview footage, and I've been meaning to get back, but I've had so many things. Actually, I haven't been able to get to. And Flying GSP, welcome. I want to play this video because it kind of catches the essence of what I always try to say about cost of living in Mexico. So let me go ahead. I think we got enough people in the room today to go and play this reel. And I want this to try to resonate with you during this whole discussion that we're going to have. Let me go ahead and switch over and pull up my YouTube, and let's see if this works.
A lot of people want to move to Mexico because it's so much cheaper to live here. And I would say kind of, yes. I mean, groceries are about the same. Utilities are going to be roughly the same. Medical costs are definitely, cheaper here. That's certain. However, housing prices, I wouldn't say are comparable, but they're almost comparable. I guess $400,000 or $500,000 here will buy you a really nice house in a gated community, right? But that's, as much or more than a lot of people in the U.S. are paying for their homes today. When you come to Mexico, I would not look at price as being the number one driver of why you're wanting to get here. Okay. I would actually look at quality of life and look at it from a different point of view. A lot of people want
to. But I want to resonate this point. I know a lot of people are going to say I can get a house for a lot cheaper. I paid less than $400,000 for my house, but it's probably worth more. The property valuations went up. But I want this to resonate, and I know people are going to say I can find groceries for cheaper and everything else, and that was the point of my video. But the point of this short, and the reason why I wanted to play this short, is because this short, and I hope it came out okay. Let me know if the sound came out okay, or that it wasn't double doing or doesn't double playing. But the reason why I really wanted to come up with this short is at the very end, I want this to resonate with you. It's about the quality of life here. Don't move here just for the cost of living here. And actually, to give this guy a plug, he does have a YouTube channel full of shorts, but he's kind of getting onto YouTube a little bit. Instagram is where he's at. If you look up Caribe Gringo on Instagram, the guy's got a ton of reels. And he's got a really great perspective on Mexico. Thank you. Great he's got a lot of perspectives on Mexico. He does use stats, but here's the thing about using statistics, and this is where I kind of got into making this cost of living video, what people won't tell you, and the three different methods that people use to try to explain the cost of living. There is a problem when you start using statistics because you need to look at the true picture. You need to look at the reality. And this guy does a good job at using the statistics, but also to prove a point, and and actually show the realities in Mexico. So it's very different than what I was criticizing earlier. Now, please don't take this. I'm not trying to put down a YouTuber. I'm not jealous. I don't care. But I am going to tell you about what video I saw and why I think it's wrong, and why I think this is what's wrong with a lot of these cost of living videos. There's nothing wrong with them or posts, but this individual, Kuru Paul, he doesn't live in Mexico anymore. He lives in the United States. He lived in Playa del Carmen, the Riviera Maya, for 7 years. Never moved anywhere else. Never lived anywhere else in Mexico. He's a great researcher. Like I said, he's one of the best informative YouTubers that I think. I have a great amount of respect for him. But he has one little problem, and in certain videos, I brought this up to his attention several times, that, okay, your video's kind of accurate in the sense of statistics, in the sense of the law, in the sense of the regulations, but it might work that way in Playa del Carmen, or it might work that way in the Riviera Maya, but it doesn't work that way in San Miguel, or it doesn't work that way in Monterrey. And so what he did was he did a video. He hasn't, I guess he's just trying to keep his Mexico YouTube video alive. He's more into teaching Spanish lessons now. He's a perfect Spanish speaker, and he has a whole Spanish channel. But I guess he ends up doing this. Actually, it wasn't a video totally on the cost of living. What it was a video about the residency requirements going up. And what he was the point he was trying to make is that if you want to qualify under, hey, Jerry, how's it going? Rick Royce, welcome. If you want to qualify for residency here, because the residency requirements have gone up, by financial solvency means, basically, Mexico only wants rich people. And how did he come to that conclusion? And he came to that conclusion by taking statistics, okay? And they are official statistics from Mexico. He even named the statistics. According to the official statistics on whatever website, Government of Mexico website, to be in the middle class, you have to earn so many pesos, which is the equivalent of $12,000. In order to be in the upper middle class, you have to earn so much. And then he said, and your Social Security check is so much, or basically, but the financial requirements are so much, which puts you at the rich class, according to statistics. But the thing is that does a disservice to our community. Because, and it sounds great, and it's a perfect argument, and a lot of people love this guy because he throws out facts, regulations, rules. We all love facts. We all love regulations. I don't know how many times I've argued with people, and then people, well, where are your statistics? Where are your facts? Where's this? Where's that? Cite your sources. We all want, but you got to understand there's a cultural part of this. You need to immerse yourself into the culture, because the reality is, I just finished doing a video about expat versus immigrant, okay? And what was my point of the video? You know, everybody's arguing over the term expat, immigrant. I'm an expat, I'm an immigrant. Or no, you're bad because you call yourself an expat because there's gentrification, blah, 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 blah. But what did I do? I told you, what's the reality? What do Mexicans really call you? Mexicans don't call you an immigrant. Actually, migrante or immigrant here in Mexico has a bad connotation. It doesn't even have a positive connotation, because usually migrante in Mexico, right now they're having a big problem with an insurge of Haitians, Cubans, Venezuelans that are all headed to the United States. Those are the people that they call migrantes. And people in Mexico kind of talk down about immigrants here, okay? The middle class, upper middle class, even the poor people don't have a very high regard for a migrante, okay? So what's the reality? And then someone gave me this, I guess in my comments, expat equals person that's going to live here temporarily. Immigrant means person that's going to live. Well, that's a definition in a dictionary. And that's great that we have definition. Yes, Ray, there's a big issue of people coming in. And those people that are coming into Texas or going into Texas, that's what the local people here refer to migrantes or immigrants. So what's the reality? Yeah, I could take the textbook definition and that's the definition, but that's not the reality. That's not culturally what's accepted. And where I think, and actually my wife was very insulted by Kuru Paul's video, who's Mexican, and saying, you know, that's kind of inconsiderate, trying to label the middle class in Mexico based on some statistics when you don't know anything about the culture. Because that goes to show that you don't know about the culture in here in Mexico. And hey, Lambden, how's it going? And the reason why I say that is because comparing the middle class in Mexico to the middle class in the United States is not an apple-to-apple comparison. And it's not an exact comparison. The lifestyle of a person that's considered middle class in the United States compared to the lifestyle of a person that lives a middle class life here in Mexico, there's a big difference. And then I think Kurupal's done several of these videos. What he usually does with these videos, he also pulls off of a website, some website that takes average salaries of people that live worldwide. I guess they're average salaries of people worldwide. And they take statistics of the average salary of a person. And he did this on a Social Security video too. Can you live here on Social Security? And he takes the website and he says, well, take, for example, the average doctor makes $22,000 a year. Well, that's a public health care doctor. See, and the inference is, okay, a doctor makes 22, or even a private health doctor, supposedly according to these statistics, makes $20,000 a year or $50,000 a year, or the average engineer makes $40,000 a year. So what happens is a lot of YouTubers, and I'm not just accusing Guru Paul of doing this, but there's other YouTubers that do this, that try to say, well, oh my God, if you come in on a $1,700 or $1,800, $2,000 Social Security check, you're in the upper class. You're in the top 3%. You're in the top 3 earners in Mexico. But see, that's not the reality. A person at Oxxo doesn't make much, Bill. Actually, the salaries here are very low. That they make a minimum wage. Now, the reason why I say that's not the reality is I gave an example in the last time that I did. I will admit that wages are low, but I'm gonna kind of give you a different perspective on the Mexican culture and how it works. And I'm gonna get away from. I'm gonna use the doctor first, but I'm gonna go down to that person from Oxxo, actually, Bill. But for example, okay, that doctor, that public health doctor, and actually, Guru Paul, I give him credit. He did say, also consider he may have a private practice. Okay, that public health doctor, okay, reports his income as a public health doctor. All those statistics come from people paying taxes, all of those types of things. What do you get government statistics? You get them from the tax revenue records, those types of things. So what happens? You grab a statistics, you grab all the salary, and actually an IMSS doctor, they make a certain salary, it's fixed. So usually that statistic is correct. But does that really reflect the true salary of that doctor? I'm going to tell you how it worked culturally here in Mexico. First of all, that doctor, 99% chance, also has a private practice. Okay. Now, medical, I said it was very affordable. So that doctor doesn't make $500,000 a year, he may pull in, if he's lucky, anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000 a year. Now, we're going to say, well, yeah, that's not a lot, in a sense, because we have doctors in the United States making 4 or 5 or 6 times as much. Or there's certain, actually, I think Guru Paul even did a thing comparing the salary of a McDonald's worker to a nurse here. And it kind of, you can see this disparity but the logical conclusion that everybody comes to is that if that doctor makes $70,000 to $100,000 a year, which is a very high profession, which we regard in the United States as making a lot of money, then we put that equivalency to a doctor in Mexico. Oh, they must make a lot of money. So a lot of money is $70,000. And that's not quite true. $70,000, number one, goes a lot further. Number two, you have to look at how that doctor lives. A doctor here does not live like a doctor in the United States. So if that doctor is making what you're pulling in on your pension, yes, you'll live a comfortable life, but also there's several factors you need to take into consideration when you look at the Mexican middle class and the Mexican upper middle class. And I can give you an example, and I can tell you that it is feasible to live on $1,500 a month and be considered middle class, live in a middle class neighborhood. But it's not about how much you make. Well, for example, in the Mexican middle class, okay, people own their homes. They don't have a mortgage, okay? Most Mexican middle class individuals either own their homes or are living with family members until they can own a home. You don't have mortgages here are very, very expensive. I would say a good percentage of people that own homes own it outright. Very few mortgages. And then there's a program called Infonavit where workers, it's kind of like a 401k where you kind of put money in, the government matches, and people work for up to 20 years to get enough points to, I guess, put a down payment on a house or pay 3/4 of their house. And those people only pay $300 a year in property tax. So that doctor lives in a $300,000 house or $400,000 house, paid off, doesn't pay rent. Electricity is next to nothing, depending where you live, because the electricity can be very expensive. Water is next to nothing. So all that doctor has to do is come up with expenses. And then not only that, but that doctor will save up for 3 or 4 years. And yes, he owns a BMW, but he outright owns a BMW. No mortgage. I mean, not mortgage, no loan. Okay. So a doctor here lives a different lifestyle. Now, a doctor in the United States, $3 million home, has a mortgage. A doctor in the United States drives around in a Porsche. I guarantee you it's either being leased or it's being paid for because he needs the tax deduction. So, okay, the doctor in the United States has a lot more stuff. As a matter of fact, I was in Cancun. My wife and I, we were looking at these people really weird. But we went on Cancun. We went on a tour. We ended up going into a van and was in a tourist area. We were coming back, and there was this guy who was like, "Oh, I own 3 Harleys. I got a $500,000 house." He wasn't really anything. He was some kind of engineer from something. And he was bragging about how many cars he had, how many houses he had, or how much his house was worth, what kind of cars he had. And the minute we got off the van, we started laughing and said, yeah, he doesn't own any of that stuff. The bank does. As a matter of fact, here in Mexico, if you talk to a middle-class person or anybody, when someone has a mortgage on the house, they don't say, I own the house. They usually say, the bank owns the house. As a matter of fact, it's funny because my sister-in-law just bought a house in Austin, and her husband was saying, we were talking, oh, yeah, now that she bought a house in Austin, and her brother-in-law goes, no, she doesn't own the house in Austin. The bank owns the house. And that's the truth. So we can't equivocate a Mexican middle-class lifestyle because, or for example, my in-laws, they live in a $400,000 to $350,000, probably $400,000 or $500,000 house now because they bought it 5 years ago or 6 years ago, 7 years ago. But they live on a pension. They live on $1,500 a month, but they don't have those expenses that you may have when you come here. If you don't own a house, you're looking at anywhere from $500. You can even eat up your whole Social Security check on a house. That's my point. So there's no way you can compare that. Now, the other thing that I see, which is more accurate, is people that, hey, let me share my budget with you. Okay. The only thing is that you got to take into consideration that their budget or their standard of living may be different than yours. So one person saying, I can live here, actually, I think Tangerine Travels did something with with another YouTubers where he was saying that he lives on less than $1,000 a month. And he at one point living on $350 a month in Merida. Yeah, but if you look at his lifestyle, he lives in a local neighborhood. He doesn't use air conditioning. I mean, I've already brought this up. And so there's a difference in the middle class. The other thing that is not taken into consideration in cost of living is that in Mexico, there's a whole secondary economy. What you're going to find here in Mexico, you might want to pay the plumber, and you tell the plumber, hey, everybody's going to be, cash is king here. Many people do business in cash. Many professionals have 2 to 3 jobs. Now, in the United States, it's the same thing. Some people own a taco stand. They leave work and they might be a computer programmer for I don't know, major corporation and get home at 5 o'clock and start making tacos at a taco stand to make extra money. Okay. So there's a whole secondary economy, and you need to be careful when you watch these things. And the one that I think that does a really great job, for example, sharing how much it costs, Gringos R Us does a really great job. What they have done is basically decided we're going to travel everywhere and see where we like, where we love to be, not to mention maybe where the cost of living is better and everything else. And they're sharing their journey. The other one that does a real good job is Mexico Relocation Guide. As a matter of fact, if you sign up for her email stuff, she always sends out stuff. And actually, the last cost of living analysis, she shares people's personal budgets. But here's the thing. The last personal budget she shared was in Baja California. They were living on $3,000 a month. And then, of course, she made notes. Note, this $3,000 a month, they lived in California. So it's a heck of a lot cheaper for them to pay $3,000 than maybe $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 they were paying in California. She's also done some good economic breakdowns for people that are living there on $1,500 a month. But she also puts, but take into consideration, this person bought a house, they don't pay rent. Take into consideration, they own their car. So she makes sure that when you see their budget, you can see the considerations that the person has. And that's what you need to start looking for before someone just tells you, oh, I live here on $1,500 a month. Yeah, but they're not telling you that they live in a one bedroom or a room that's got a hot plate and a mini fridge. And that's good for them. I mean, that's sufficient for them. That's their lifestyle. That's frugal. There's a lot of people that are getting into a minimalist lifestyle. As a matter of fact, it's very, a lot of people are saying that minimalism is becoming a new thing, and it makes you feel more at peace, all of that stuff. And actually, those are the benefits that you can get from living a minimalist lifestyle. But you got to remember, there's people that come in and want the same lifestyle as they had and don't want to live a minimalist lifestyle. So if they're listening to the person that lives a minimalist lifestyle saying, I live here on $1,500 a month, and then they get here and say, wait a second, I want to go out to the expensive restaurant, but I don't have any money left. Or I want to do this, or I want to do that. Or I want a BMW like I have back in the United States. BMWs cost double the money here. And then you just can't get a car loan. It's hard to get a car loan here. It's at outrageous interest rates. And even when you do, it's like 50% down or 60% down. And that's if you even have credit here. So, so you have certain expectations. And here's the thing. I'm not here to say, hey, $1,500 a month is better than $3,000 or $4,000. No, I'm here to say, it's about quality. Exactly what I said, what Caribe Gringo said in his video. It's about quality of life. It's not about cost. And then if you want to fit that cost, then what you need to do is take that cost and that you want to live within and see what you can compromise so that you can live that life. And if you don't, here I am to say that you can live awesome on $1,000 a month, or you can live awesome on $10,000 a month here in Mexico. Now this individual, Caribe Gringo, probably, he said everything's about the same. He probably goes to the grocery store. He lives in Playa del Carmen. Electricity is probably the same because he lives in Playa del Carmen. Air conditioned. All of those bills are the same because that's where he chose to live. So it's all about expectations. My output level, Tim Clark, hi. You know what, Tim? I've had that issue before. Let me ask you something here. Let me check something here. How about now? Is my output level better? Is my output level better now, at a higher level now? because I just turned it up. Thanks for bringing that up. Actually, Tim, because I've had that brought up. Okay, great. Actually, I've had that brought up. I have a mixer that sometimes I have to turn up on my software. The mixer has this habit of trying to keep your voice at official sound correct levels, and like Tim Clark, much better. Okay. Like Tim said, sometimes it makes it sound, guess by the time it goes through YouTube and everything else, it sounds a little bit more muted. Okay. And Frederica, you brought up a great, after living the consumerism lifestyle for decades, I want a quality of life these days. Yes. And that's what it's all about. And also Mark brings up, or I don't know if it's Paulette or Mark, it's two travelers in Mexico, but you can live in Mexico on $1,700 a month, but you won't be able to qualify for residency visa unless you're coming in on a family ties kind of thing, or the regularization program, which is still available, which may not be available pretty soon. Also on the regularization program, I know a lot of YouTubers push this program, or they push the regularization program like it's this, and it is a game changer. Oh, don't worry. You got to remember on the regularization program, first of all, each INM different office is a different entity, and they need, it's a different entity, and they have different, qualifications. Also, with the regularization program, the main qualification is that you visited Mexico before. So let's say you've never been to Mexico and, I want to go to Mexico, and you don't qualify financially. This is in my video. I don't know if everybody's watched it or if you haven't watched it. In my video, I mentioned the most important thing is to see if you qualify for residency first, whichever way. Maybe you're married to a Mexican citizen. I know a lot of Hispanics that their parents were Mexican citizen. They go and they get their dual citizenship. So you need to look into those things that, am I going to be able to live there? Now, there is the regularization program, but do I qualify? I have been there previously. Do I have a passport stamp that I've been there previous to 2020? Some of them say 2022. Some of them are previous to the end of 2023. Have I visited? Maybe I went on vacation. Yes, I qualify. Now, am I going to be able to get a limited amount of days so my visa will expire? Also, the other, and then the other thing you need to consider is that if your visa expires, and you get stopped, you're illegally in the country and you can get deported. So there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration. So those are the things. Residency is the first thing. So yes, if you qualify, I would say take advantage of the regularization program right now, but it's not the magic bullet like everybody's saying. And it's one way of getting it. Being married to a Mexican citizen is another way of getting it. Having a child that is a Mexican citizen. As a matter of fact, we have a very personal friend of ours that got permanent residency through his daughter. Actually, his wife's Mexican, but he got it through his daughter. Because if you're married, because the family member has to go with you to the consulate, his wife couldn't go. But he can actually get citizenship through his daughter because his daughter is a Mexican citizen. Ray, I have dual citizenship. Can I just move to Mexico? Yes, you can, Ray. There's no other requirements. Just make sure, the only thing, Ray, that I would make sure, as with your dual citizenship, I don't know if you have an INE, or if you just have, they call them matricula consular, which is that shows that you're a Mexican citizen or a Mexican passport. Just get all of that stuff in order, because one of the things when you do move to Mexico, if you don't have the INE, because if you've got your dual citizenship through the consulate, or you just have a birth certificate that you were born in Mexico, or you have dual citizenship because your parents are born in Mexico, but you haven't gotten those documents, just get all your Mexican documents in order and make sure you have an INE, because 99% of stuff is all based on your INE. INE is your voter registration. Once you get here, just make sure that you go to the INE office with all of your Mexican passports. And okay, you have an INE and a passport, so you got everything that you need. Actually, believe it or not, actually, your INE, the only thing you might need to get is an RFSA, an RFC. But that's eventually everybody's going to need one, even residents. Actually, 2 years ago, it was required by law. That's a perfect example that I could pull up a law that actually passed 2 years ago, but it's not really being practiced right now to its full extent because $3K a month, Ray, $3K a month is going to do you just fine. And if you have, I think the limited budgets are the ones that are harder to do. And you'll be very comfortable on 3K. And one thing I need to mention here, your dollar is going to go a lot further here than it does in the United States. Believe it or not, I live a better quality of lifestyle. And I live in a home that probably now on my pension, well, it's valued now at something that I probably couldn't purchase in the United States at that price. But I didn't purchase it at the price. I purchased it at half the price. Actually, I purchased it for less than what I would have gotten a house for in the United States. And you can still get great real estate deals. I'm not saying that you can't. Yeah, your appreciation will go up drastically if you can afford that. I mean, what I did was I took my money out of my 401k and bought a house, basically cash. And that way I don't have my only expenses in San Miguel de Allende, my electric bill, my water bill, my gas, and basically my car insurance, my medical insurance. Now in Monterrey, same thing. I sold a house, sold all my properties in the United States, and used that money to buy property here. In San Miguel, so far, I've doubled. In 6 years, we're going on 7 years. My house has doubled in value. Monterrey, I'm still building my house and finishing it up, and it's almost got about a 10%, 15, 20% return in appreciation. So property is a great investment here if you can. If you can't, then so let me start taking questions here. Jeff Patel, curious about your safety concerns about GTO. Love the city and the weather. Most of my Mexican family is in Monterrey and Irapuato. But GTO seemed very safe when I visited last year. Actually, Jeff, Guanajuato, San Miguel happens to be in the state of Guanajuato. Okay. My safety concerns about Irapuato is totally fine. My only and Guanajuato City, trust me, I go to Guanajuato City. There's a place out in Guanajuato that I visit very, very, very commonly. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's a little town called Cajones. There's a place called Resplendor out there. There's a college professor from the University of Arizona that retired and has a community center there. And we go and we visit and donate stuff to the community center and everything else. And it's totally fine. The highway there is totally fine. The highway we take there is totally fine. The problems you're going to find in Guanajuato and is just not going to the wrong towns. There's Salamanca, there's Celaya. As a matter of fact, Salamanca, Celaya, there's been where they burned up businesses actually. And actually, there's a highway that goes to Celaya from San Miguel de Allende. Celaya is only about 30 minutes away. I've been there, but because I had to go to a notario there with my sister-in-law, but we all got in the car together. Those are the places that you have to be careful with in Guanajuato. Places like San Miguel de Allende, Guanajuato proper, the actual city of Guanajuato. Very beautiful city, very safe to walk around in at night. We walked around very. The thing you just need to make sure also is that in Guanajuato, for example, if I want to go from Guanajuato to León, from San Miguel to León, the road is very dark. At places, it's almost messed up to the point where you need a 4x4 to go through some of the potholes. It's so bad. And you don't want to go in the middle of the night. And that's if anything's going to happen to you, that's when it's going to happen to you. Usually when we go and visit Cajones, which is that little town I told you about, usually we tell Dr. Fletcher, it's usually in the summer when the sun goes down at 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And we usually tell Dr. Fletcher, hey, you know what? We need to go so we can make it back on the roads during the day. So we plan our road trips during the day. So you should be okay in Guanajuato. Lambden, if you own a house in Mexico, your house appreciates significantly. How long do you have to live there to avoid capital gains tax? Okay, Lambden, actually, I had to deal with this because I was going to sell my house in San Miguel. If I believe it's 3 to 5 years that you have to live there. You have to have an RFC. That's one of the reasons to get an RFC. Although I know a lot of people are very, 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 very adamant that I'm not going to get an RFC because it's going to invade my privacy and I don't want to give the government my personal information. And I'm thinking, well, wait a second. You gave the government all your personal information when you got residency. Yeah, you're not giving the tax authority any more information than they already have on you. Second of all, if you don't have to pay taxes in Mexico, or you don't have a tax liability, just because you have an RSC does not mean that somehow mysteriously the Mexican government is going to start collecting taxes on you. The RFC is not for people that pay taxes. The RFC is for everybody. Anytime you do a major transaction, you buy a car, you need an RFC because they have this thing called a factura. As a matter of fact, I just went to the doctor and I needed a factura. The reason why I need a factura is it's an official receipt from the government, not from the doctor's office, so that I can claim on my insurance. I need an RFC so that they can report it to the tax authority. And actually they send you this official receipt. And it's not for me, it's for the doctor that attended me. They report that they made $100 on the consult, and they need my RFC because they need the name of the person that consulted. Because what happened many years ago, or was happening up until a couple of years ago, is that doctors were saying, I bought this, I bought that, I spent on this, I spent on that. And they have these facturas with what they call a generic RC. So basically the facturas would say $10,000 worth of medical equipment sold by, I don't know, XYZ medical equipment company to unknown. And the doctor would grab the unknown and say, I'm the unknown. So therefore I'm using doctors as an example, but they used to call these people factureros. They used to create these companies and create facturas. Well, now, in order to battle that, the Mexican IRS, or equivalent SAT, has said everybody, including residents, including you residents over 18 years of age, need an RFC. Now that's why now people are going to the banks and they can't get bank accounts without one. Intercam is now, because Intercam is, well, you used to be able to do it without residency. Intercam's kind of like this international bank, and now, and you don't need an RFC. Well, what Intercam doesn't tell you, I know a lot of people have been happy with Intercam, is that they're also not complying with the banking regulations. So like, I just saw a post right now that Intercam is no longer accepting WISE transfers. Why? Because in order to accept WISE transfers, they have to comply with the Mexican banking regulations, which they aren't. So then what's the best way to do it? Just don't accept the transfers and we can keep doing business here. So That's the thing with the RFC, that everyone needs one. But now with the RFC, instead of ABC Medical Company, it'll say $10,000 worth of medical equipment sold to Ernie Baca. And then if the doctor wants to say, well, Ernie Baca works for me, or Ernie Baca is part of my subsidiary company, that's why you need an RFC. Is not necessarily for you to pay taxes, but for the other individual doing those large transactions with you. And also, people don't realize this. If you deposit more than 15,000 pesos in cash, you go to the cashier and say, here's 15,000 pesos. I want to put it into my bank account. You have to file a report, just like you have to file a report in the United States for a $10,000 cash transaction. So flying SGP, yes. People also need to remember that the current exchange rate is not guaranteed. I'll give you an example of flying SGP. Remember how I said my house appreciated? Like majorly, like doubled in price? Well, you got to remember, I bought my house at 20 to 1. Now it's 17 to 1. So part of that appreciation has to do with the peso exchange rate. Merylina, I'm currently in San Miguel scouting for retirement. From what I can tell, prices are going up exponentially here, and if not already, it will soon be unaffordable for living on a pension only and renting. Merylina, actually, I'm from San Miguel. The only thing I can tell you, yes, San Miguel rents are getting higher. Everything's getting higher here in Mexico. Everything's increasing. Prices are increasing. Inflation has hit us here. People made some comment. I forgot which comment I was replying to, but someone made a comment that things are getting expensive here. Yes, they are. Things are getting expensive in Mexico, but they're getting expensive all over the world. As a matter of fact, here in Monterrey, I feel it a little bit more because we're closer to the United States. And so when I go and buy groceries, I kind of feel like I'm paying U.S. prices. But then when I go to the U.S., which is 2.5 hours away, and I go to buy the same groceries, is double, not even, almost 40% more. And I'm sitting there going, wow. I mean, I'm even impressed on how much it's increased over there. So things are going up everywhere. So the one thing, Merylina, that I'm going to suggest, there still is those little gems of rentals there in San Miguel. You really have to look. My advice would be to look for someone local that can find you that affordable place. The other thing too, like I said, you may need to move into a local neighborhood. Also find a landlord that is going to give you, like, I'm not going to increase the rent, like sign a long-term lease, because rents, they're taking advantage of the fact that so many Americans are moving there, and Canadians and foreigners. And I mean, San Miguel's got everything from all over the world coming in. So that's another thing that I can give you advice. Another thing is also the grocery store. We did notice when we went back to San Miguel, we are paying more money for groceries. And I can tell you that the inflation rate here in Mexico, there is one, but it's not as high as in the United States. So when you kind of compare the two, the United States is, and I don't care if the United States has said they've gone down to 3%, they're still at 11 or 12%, and they're up here in their inflation rate of Mexico. So everything's increasing, but exponentially too. I mean, but compared to the U.S., it's not increasing as much. But one thing that we do, we buy all our fruits and vegetables from the market. We don't buy our fruits and vegetables, which is 90% of what we buy. We don't buy it at the supermarket. And we literally can buy 2 weeks worth of vegetables for, like, I think the last time I went, I did a live stream. We spent over maybe not even 1,000 pesos, but that was like for 2,000. I mean, not even 500. I did one where let's see what we could get for 500 pesos. And we literally got a week's worth of groceries. Yes, San Miguel is expensive. You can affordably live here. But you're really going to have to do your research if you want to do it. I know a lot of people that live here very affordably. I'm not trying to tell you that San Miguel is the place to be, but you can do it. Now, Bill the Geek has some. San Miguel is expensive. Ajijic is expensive. Lots of Americans and Canadians there. I am moving to Morelia, and my rent will be half of what I pay in Mazatlan. Exactly, Bill. These are the things. What Bill just brought up are the things that I try to stress here. You might have to go to a different city. Someone brought up when I did my cost of living video that they live in Playa del Carmen, and it costs just as much to live in Playa del Carmen than in Orlando, Florida. Now, their quality of life is probably the same as in Orlando, Florida. But that's where you have to think of those things. No, actually, to travelers in Mexico, it's 15,000 pesos, not US dollars. 16,000 pesos. If you deposit that in a Mexican bank, they will fill out a report on you to the Mexican tax authority. It's not $15,000. Now, $10,000, let me make this clear. When you go into the United States, if you have more than 10,000, if you have anybody that's traveled internationally, they'll ask you, do you even have to fill out a form? Do you have more than $10,000? You have to do what they call a CMIR when you go in the United States. Mexico has the same thing. If you have more than $10,000, well, it can be in pesos, it can be in dollars, but the value has to be more than $10,000. You do have to declare it to customs here in Mexico. Now, that's the difference. The 15,000 pesos that I'm talking about is declaring it to the bank, which is a cash, kind of like a CTR in the United States. But coming in, it's $10,000, actually. It's not 10,000 pesos. It's the equivalent of 10. If you have the equivalent of 10,000 US dollars, when you're coming in, you have to declare it. Jerry, I don't think I can buy a car in PV without an RFC anymore. Yeah, a lot of car dealers will not let you purchase a vehicle without an RFC. And the reason for that RFC, Jerry, is not because they want you to pay taxes. It's because when the car dealership sells the car, they can say, we sold the car to Jerry Zickert, and not, we sold the car to a foreigner. That's the way it used to be before with a generic RFC. I used to use the generic RFC all the time. When I had my cancer treatment, in order to get into the hospital, I used the generic. When they asked me for my RFC, all I'd say is, I'm American. Use the generic RFC. The generic RFC has been abolished with the law that was passed 2 years ago. Now, here's the thing. I know I'm going to get people saying, yes, but we still use the generic RFC. Yes, because there's this system called Factura 4.0, and then there's the old Factura system. The problem is SAT hasn't caught up. So there's people using both Factura systems, okay? So they're allowing the generic RFC if you're using the old system. So, and actually some people are running them both in, how do you say it, in tandem together. Actually, if you go to the doctor's office, they'll say, oh, okay, I'm American, I need the generic RFC. They'll put it in the old Factura system. So right now, SAT is running two systems simultaneously. So that's why the generic RFC is still allowed in some places, not in all places. But you're going to find more people, either if they've converted over to the 4.0 system, they won't do business with you unless you have an RFC. Or some people just don't want to mess with going into the old system, because most businesses have access to both. Yes, but Intercam is not a Mexican bank, is it? It's out of Puerto Rico, I believe. Yes, Intercam is not a Mexican bank, and that's why they've been able to get around a lot of the banking regulations here. As a matter of fact, Intercam even lets you write a check, a personal check, like an American check, and deposit in your Mexican account here. Susan, yes, we've deposited 15,000 CDN Canadian Intercam, and no questions or forms. Yes, they don't make you fill out forms, Susan, but they file a form with SAT. Now, here's the thing with Intercam. Like I said, Intercam is not a Mexican bank. Eventually, and here's the thing that I always caution people with Intercam, is that eventually Intercam may not be allowed to, and also you deposited a check. It wasn't cash. It was, if I'm talking about pesos, you take 15,000 pesos. And also, yes, you're probably, you're actually saying, I'm sorry, I might have misunderstood you because I saw that I'm kind of delayed. Yes, in a check, you were trying to say that, yeah, they accept checks, but here's my point on Intercam. The problem with Intercam is eventually, if the Mexican government says, hey, you need to either start complying with our banking regulations or not operate here at all. Now, here's the problem. If they start complying with the banking regulations, you're going to need an RFC. And here's the thing that happened with the RFC. Some banks, literally with an RFC, some banks will freeze your account until you come to the bank with your RFC. I'll give you an example of myself. I didn't open my account with an RFC. I didn't have an RFC when I opened my BBVA account. So they offered me a credit card. BBVA offered me a credit card. I keep a large amount in the bank. I had a large amount because of I was building a house and I was transferring the money, and I had to do transfers from my Mexican bank account to my builder, and they offered me a credit card. And credit cards here, you don't want to hold a balance on them, but we have a credit card here because, number one, it's very convenient to have one because you can purchase things that you can't purchase with maybe a Charles Schwab card and everything else. We pay the balance off, and then they have these things where pagos without interest. So many times we buy something for a large amount of money or 10,000 pesos, and then we just divide it into 12 payments. And so they offered me a credit card. I said, okay. They said, come pick up your credit card. And I said, okay. So I went to pick up my credit card. They say, oh, by the way, before we give you your credit card, we haven't updated your RFC. Well, I had an RFC. So I said, okay, here you go. Here's my RFC. Actually, I keep it on my iCloud or whatever, or Microsoft Cloud. And I emailed it to them. Okay, that's going to take us 5 days to put your RFC in the system, and we still can't give you your credit card. Now, they didn't fully freeze my account, but they had to have my RFC updated in order to give me my credit card or continue any kind of business like that. So this might happen to you. For those of you that basically say, hey, I don't want to get an RFC. My facilitator told me it's optional. I don't need to get one. And actually, yes, you do by law, but no, the only enforcement that you're not going to go to jail, you're not going to get fined, you're not going to get in trouble by not having one. Your penalty is going to be that you can't do business here anymore, period, almost, eventually. Even going to the doctor's office, they're going to ask for your RFC. Still takes my wife's transfers as of recently. Actually, you know what? To travelers, I don't know what's going on, but there was a thread that I saw that literally they froze these people's account. They were going to shut it down, and they told them they didn't. They unfroze it. I don't know if it's a location, what's going on. Several people started saying the same thing. I don't even remember which expat group I saw it in. So I don't know the status of Intercam. To be honest with you, two travelers, I think Intercam's going to eventually start when all the other banks fall in line. I mean, they can't afford to be honest with you, they're all over Mexico. I don't see them leaving. I just see, what I see is that they're just trying to, and I don't know if they were the only place that accepted a bank account with just a passport. I don't know if they still do that. Maybe they're changing their processes so they can actually operate out of Mexico. But eventually you'll need an RFC for even intercam. Anna, how can you get your RFC without a permanent address, traveling different places to decide where you want to live? Anna, actually, well, you're still going to need to be honest with you, you're going to have to settle down in one place where you're going to get the RFC, in the sense that it's a virtual appointment system. Excuse me. You put yourself in a queue. Then you go to the and what they will require of you is your residency card, your passport, and your residency card, your passport, and a comprobante de domicilio is what they call it here in Mexico. Actually, a lot of people have asked me this. I was answering a question in Mexico Relocation Guide Facebook. They were like, they want a utility bill, but I don't have my utility bill in my name because I rent. Or how do I get a utility? How can I give them a utility bill? No, what I had to explain is they want what's called a comprobante de domicilio. Remember how I just said in this cost of living video that a lot of times 4 or 5 family members live together? Well, they take that in consideration. So really all you need is a utility bill with an address. It could be, but it's got to be an original one so they know that you're not. So if you take that utility bill, like let's say you're renting from an Airbnb, you tell the landlord, you know what? And here's the thing is, it has to be from a person, not from the business or not from the apartment complex. Can I have a CFE bill, a comprobante de domicilio, so that I can go get my RFC? And they'll say, not a problem. They'll give you the bill. You show up. It's not in your name. Okay. It's not in your name, but it'll be okay. They'll use that address. Also, if you do the full process, they'll take your biometrics, and then you get a special key. You have to take a thumb drive too. You get a special key on a thumb drive that you can log in and change your address whenever you permanently settle down. So it's kind of the same as residency. You can use a comprobante wherever you're at. As a matter of fact, I think Kai even got some help getting hers, and she used her Airbnb people or people that she was renting with. Actually, they even went with her to help her get her RFC. Another channel mentioned that you need to present your Social Security card, SS card. Is that Social Security card? I've never heard of that one before, Tim. To be honest with you, when I did my RFC, it was my residency card, my passport, and a comprobante de domicilio, and I had to take a thumb drive. So, and I do know there are some facilitators that can get you your RFC. They do it out of I don't know where, and you'll end up with an address in some other place because they have contacts within SAT, and you don't need anything, kind of, sort of. You send them copies. You send the accountant copies of your stuff. But if you can do it on your own, it's better because you still need to do the e-firma. So even if someone says, I can get you your RFC, yeah, they can get your RFC and you can send them all the documents. But if you don't have the e-firma, the electronic signature, the biometrics, you can't change any of the information on your RFC, like the change of address, like Anna asked. And I have a corp and resident permanent. Thanks, but when moved to another place, do you need to update the address? Actually, you need to update your address with immigration and with, and actually, there's a misconception. Everybody thinks it's when you have temporary residency, you have to, no, it's anytime you change your address with immigration, you're supposedly supposed to change your address. Technically, immigration can come and check. I've never seen them come and check. I've never seen it happen, but technically, but where they'll catch you, and this is why people say, oh, it's only for temporary residents, is because when they go to renew, they maybe originally put let's say when you go to renew, you put an Airbnb address and you say, oh no, now I live in Querétaro. They're like, you never changed your address. Now you owe us a fine. So that's where you get That's where you can get in trouble. So you do need to update your address once you settle there for more than 30 days is what it supposedly is. So now here's the thing. They have no way of knowing that you changed your address. What happened with a friend of mine, they ended up with a fine, but they ended up giving someone else hey, heads up, I know you moved. They moved from Querétaro to San Miguel, and then they were honest and said, oh yeah, I live in San Miguel now. Oh, by the way, that's a fine. But what one of their friends did was they just said, oh, yeah, we just moved to San Miguel. And they had been living in San Miguel for 2 years. But I want to update my address at the same time as I want to renew. So that's type of thing. Technically, you're supposed to change your address. Same thing with SAT, so that if they need to send you any tax notices, which if you don't have any tax liability, you're not going to get tax notices, but they always need to know where you're at, kind of, sort of. 2 Travelers in Mexico. And actually, thank you, 2 Travelers. You guys are a wealth of information. And also, someone also said Intercam's a good bank. Actual, Ralph, before I go into 2 Travelers, it is a good bank. I don't have anything against Intercam. I used to recommend it to people, especially people that, as a matter of fact, when the RFC thing came in, I recommended it to people that don't have an RFC. The only thing is I'm starting to see what's going on with the regulations. If you're over 60, I think most RFC offices will take you in at the door without an appointment. Yes, that is true. But if you don't speak Spanish, well, take someone who does, because you'll be going to different people. Yes, that is true. And sometimes they'll have somebody that'll speak English. But actually, Kai, I think she took somebody with her to Mexico City, and they were able to help her and translate and everything else. And yes, if you are over 60, you can go without an appointment. That's one of the benefits of being older here. Kurupal mentioned on a video about opening a bank account in Mexico. Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe, did he mention, I don't know, the Social Security card? I've never shown so everybody's asking for my passport, my permanent resident card. Now, maybe, Tim, since Intercam, maybe it is with Intercam that maybe they require Social Security cards. Maybe with Intercam they do, because if they're out of Puerto Rico, they're a U.S. bank, so they require a Social Security number. Maybe that's the reason. But most Mexican banks, BBVA, HSBC, Scotiabank, I mean, some BBVA, HSBC, they're all international, but they have, their banks here in Mexico. They all require that, none of them on your Social Security card. Maybe that is to replace your RFC in the sense of with Intercam, maybe, Tim. I didn't see that video with Kurupal, but or maybe he said you need an RFC, the equivalent of your Social Security number. Maybe that's what he was saying. I haven't seen the video. I have to look at it. So if you're not in one place for more than 30 days, you're okay. Actually, you're pretty much okay, Anna. Immigration is not going to check. Where you get in trouble, like I said, is you're a permanent resident. But where you get in trouble is when you show up to the INS office and you say, I want to renew my residency. Okay, you still live at, I don't know, blah, 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 Puerto Vallarta. Why are you here in San Miguel? Oh, I moved to San Miguel. How long ago? 6 months ago. Oh, you didn't change your address within 30 days of moving to a new place. And actually the law says you have to change your address within 30 days. I'll tell you what I do, but I have a different situation. I maintain my permanent address in Monterrey because that's where I did my processes. If immigration wants to find me, they can find me at that address, even if I'm living in San Miguel, because it happens to be a permanent. I mean, literally, I have packages sent there to that address. So, I mean, do your best just to have a permanent address on it. I mean, I'm going to tell you something about Mexican officials here. They're very understanding. Yes, they can be very strict, and yes, they can be very, but as long as you do your best to comply, and like you said, Anna, you're moving around until you find a place to settle. And there's no use in trying to get around the rules. The rules are the rules, and eventually they'll catch up to you if you try to get around them. But if you're not intentionally trying to get around them, and as a matter of fact, I'll give you an example. Someone that hasn't, I don't know, Gringos R Us are not here right now, but I'm almost sure that they haven't changed their address since they got their residency. They take off every 30 days to a different place until they figure out where they want to live. So, that's, I mean, it would be impractical every time they arrive to change their address. So, like I said, immigration is not going to show up unless you're in trouble, unless the government's looking for you. Then maybe, I would, well, maybe you don't want to give your new address. Kai, yes, she's here. Yes, the daughter of my Airbnb host loaned me their utility bill and went with me to get my RFC. She asked me to tip her for her assistance, which I was very grateful for. Yes, and many times you can find either facilitator, or Kai was lucky enough to find the Airbnb host, and actually probably that's the way she found the person to help her out. Susan, we live in San Luis Potosi, SLP 8 months, and Malinque for 4 months. Our RC is with the Malinque address. You know what? I wouldn't worry, Suzanne. Like I said, I live in 2 places, and I just keep everything Monterrey. As a matter of fact, my driver's license is even from here. I'm almost sure there's regulations that say that, if you spend more time in San Miguel, you have to, but we don't have any kind of set time we spend in San Miguel and any time we spend in. So I got, all my stuff is in Monterrey, so I just kept it here. So if you're in that situation, you're not going to have an issue. And if SAT needs to get a hold of me, or if immigration needs to get a hold of me, like I said, it's an address where they can get a hold of me. I mean, literally, if they want to send a notice or they want to knock on the door and we want to talk to Ernie Baca, they can talk to me, because literally my mother-in-law will get on the phone, or my father-in-law, or whoever it is at the address will get on the phone and say, guess what? There's some officials here that want to talk to you. Oh, okay, not a problem. I think the idea of having to report your address is just so they know where you're at. And it also refers to permanent residents. Ralph, yes, Intercam almost always has an English speaker available. I do know we have Intercam in San Miguel, and they always do. I do know that in both locations in San Miguel, their branches, they have English speakers. And so they pretty much cater to foreigners. So I don't have anything bad to say about Intercam, actually. The only thing is that I do warn people that are using Intercam that there's going to come a point in time where Intercam's going to be told either banking regulations are very strict here in Mexico. Trust me, very strict. So there's going to come a point in time where Mexico is going to say, especially with all of this RFC stuff, we would let you get away with breaking the rules for a while, but now you got to have to start abiding by the rules. How am I say? And probably more than likely, because Intercam has too much to lose if they move out of Mexico. They're not going to move out of Mexico. You're just probably going to see a lot of new regulations. And maybe the wise problem is transferring U.S. money to U.S. money. Maybe Intercam is still registered in the United States as their main banking platform. I have no idea. But I don't know anybody that's had any issues with Intercam, to be honest with you. Sorry, he said you need to show a Social Security card, an SS card number. And I'm thinking Social Security. Am I correct, Tim? He didn't mention Intercam, but instead an other recommendation, the banks you mentioned. Actually, Tim, to be honest with you, a Social Security not to get your RFC. And actually, to be honest with you, Tim, here in Mexico, and I don't know where Kurupal got this information. He's pretty accurate. Like I said, to be honest with you, he's pretty accurate. But he said you need a Social Security card to get your RFC, and then also to mention the Social Security. If you're talking about SS card, Social Security card, let me explain something. The Social Security card here in Mexico means nothing to the Mexican government. Nothing. It's not an official document. It's not considered an official document. There's no reason why someone's going to be asking you for your Social Security card. I don't know where you got that idea. Maybe, like I said, maybe it was Intercam because maybe they operate with U.S. clients. Maybe that was a way to get your, without an RFC with Intercam. But no bank that I know of asks you for a Social Security card. They ask you for your passport. Your passport here in Mexico is your official identification. And that's the other thing. Don't ever let your passport expire, because even if you have a resident card, your resident card, yeah, you got residency, you're legally here, but your passport is your official identification that you're an American, Canadian, British, whatever citizen you are. Your passport is your official. So they're going to get a copy of your passport, and a Social Security number here in Mexico holds no significance. And where Kurupal got that, I have no idea. If you showed any institution here in Mexico a Social Security card, they're going to look at you like, what the heck is this? This isn't, we don't take these. Okay, but hi, do you have any idea why my 94 Pathfinder, the liability should cost 3 times after I import it? I have no idea. I would go insurance shopping because usually it's more affordable here. Okay, Tusha, I think they ask for your Social Security if they need to report back to the U.S. Yes, actually, your Social Security is for security getting RC. Now, I know that you don't need one for getting an RC. What I will tell you, Tim, yes, it's a Social Security. Here's the thing. If they need to file a report with, here's the thing. If you at any time, and we're talking about even if it's for 15 minutes, you transfer the money in and you transfer the money out. If at any time you have a Mexican bank account, actually this goes for any foreign bank account. This is U.S. law if you're a U.S. citizen. If at any time your account hits over $10,000, actually I have to file them. Actually, I filed them last year for the first time, and this year I'm going to file them again. If at any time during the year you must report the foreign bank account to and it's due by the time you file your taxes. The IRS enforces it, but it's not a report to the IRS. It's a separate report that you have to file to the United States to FinCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. It's a totally different department, but IRS I actually was a liaison to FinCEN at one point. So, I disagreed with Kurupal on one of his things about a FBAR. You file the FBAR with FinCEN. Now, here's why sometimes Social Security cards numbers are important, because, and this is the bank's not going to ask you for it unless they need it, and unless you have large amounts of money. The Foreign Bank Account Reporting Act came to become law. The FBAR reports, all of that stuff, is people were hiding money. I don't know if anybody ever remembers. There was this big scandal called the Panama Papers. I'm very familiar with this because I was in law enforcement at the time, and it was a big deal. The Panama Papers is basically they revealed that a lot of rich people were holding money in bank accounts and they were hiding their money, okay? And so what the United States government did is yes, you do need a Social Security number to report to the government and file FBARs too. What happened is that the United States passed a bunch of laws, including that you have to file a report if you have a foreign bank account. And at the same time, they basically pass laws with the banks, especially like HSBC, all of those banks that have banking institutions in the United States that are regulated too, is that if we request information on any U.S. citizen that has a bank account in your country, you must give it to us. If you don't, we will not play nice with you. Okay? And this is where a lot of people try to say, well, why do I have to file an FBAR? I have my money in Mexico. How's the U.S. government going to know? Because Mexican banks are required to report to the United States government any foreign citizen that has money in all the foreign bank accounts or at the request of the U.S. government. Okay? So literally with your passport, the U.S. government's going to know. And actually your passports, trust me, the government will know. I don't know why he came up with this Social Security number. Maybe what'll happen, the bank may get a hold of you and says, we need your Social Security number in order to report your bank account to the U.S. government because they're asking for it. Not saying Social Security needed for a bank account, but for RFC. Now, actually, you don't need a Social Security card. Actually, all they're going to ask you for is your passport and for your, and actually it's for the same thing. Believe it or not, when you file your taxes, if you have income from here, you use your Social Security number, but you don't need a Social Security number for your RFC. Your passport, your residency card, and a comprobante de domicilio. Unless that's changed, and like I said, I will look into the regulations if that is the fact, if that was the fact, in fact true. But you don't need your Social Security card. I mean, your Social Security card holds no significance in Mexico whatsoever. It's not any kind of official considered any kind of official. The only official documents from the United States are your passport, your birth certificate if it's apostolized. It's not even considered official unless it's apostolized. Yes, Federica, file an FBAR to FinCEN. Yes, exactly, to FinCEN. They have an online portal. I actually, when I was in Washington, D.C., I was actually on the FinCEN Bank Secrecy Act Committee. I did a lot of work with FinCEN. Actually, I was a liaison to FinCEN when I was there. So I know a lot of this stuff. Actually, I even helped write up a lot of the banking regulations that FinCEN puts out. HSBC and I think Citibanamex asked for your Social Security number, and Intercam did not. They may ask for your Social Security number to travelers. I didn't have anything. As a matter of fact, with BBVA, I didn't have an issue. But if they do ask, I will tell you that is so that they can report your bank account to, if you ever make more than $10,000, they'll report you to the U.S. And guess what happens? If the U.S. gets a hold of it and they find out you didn't file an FBAR, it's a $10,000 fine, automatic, for every unintentional filing. And actually, I need to remember to file my FBARs or else it'll automatically get caught. Bancomer, wow. Required my Social Security number. Frank, BBVA never asked me for my Social Security number, to be honest with you. Maybe this is, how long ago, Frank, how long ago did you open your Bancomer account? Maybe this is something new because, like I said, I opened my account at a time that yes, there are heavy fines for not filing an FBAR. And that fine happens to be $10,000 for every unintentional filing. So let's say you have 3 bank accounts. That's $30,000. It's for each account. That was around 2015. Well, I don't know because I got mine after the U.S. taxes. That was around 2015. Wow. How long ago was that video that Kuru Paul had? Because maybe they were asking for it back then. Yeah, you don't need a social security. Actually, the only thing that I'm thinking also with the banks is that, for example, Citibanamex, like you said, HSBC, they're international banks that also, BBVA, also are international banks that have branches in the U.S., and maybe that's why they ask you for your social security number. I didn't have to have my social security number asked. As far as I know, I've never known anybody that needed to present their social security number or social security card. I've never had to use my social security card here in Mexico for anything, or social security number. So that's something new to me. And if it's true, then I'm not. I'll look into it. I'll ask. But I can tell you that a possible reason for it, if it's at a bank, the ones two travelers that you mentioned, HSBC, Citibanamex. HSBC happens to be, I think, is based out of the U.S. Citibanamex happens to be Citibank, and I think Mr. Finquela, Ralph, you said BBVA, Bancomer. Bancomer, BBVA, also has they're headquartered in the United States. Hey, Lisa, great to see you. Sorry you're late. They have their headquarters in the U.S. So one of their headquarters in the U.S. So maybe, I'm just saying, that's where he got that idea that you need yourself, and maybe that's what they're asking for. But they never asked me. I got mine in Monterrey, my bank account. Here's the thing, though, too. I didn't need an RSC when I got my bank account. Now, I had to update my RSC, but I didn't need an RSC when I got my bank account. My wife did. She was a Mexican citizen, and she needed her INE. But I swear to God, all I needed was my permanent residency card, my passport, and my what do you call it? Yeah, at that time, it was just my residency card and my passport, and then I needed to update my RFC afterwards. So that may be why the banks require that. And also, it makes it easier for the banks to report your bank account to the United States government if there's a request made. I don't know how it worked. I don't know how it worked back then. Anna, same as you, did not need one years ago. Yeah. I don't know how it, I can tell you how it was back when I was with FinCEN and they first passed this law and the Panama Papers and all of that stuff came out. I do know that the U.S. was very, very, very aggressive on certain banks, making them hand over everything. Give us every U.S. citizen that has a bank account in your bank. Now, with the time, I don't know if it's become more specific or now maybe they start looking into who's got more than 10,000. Maybe they're starting to request. Before, it was everybody. Actually, on your U.S. taxes, I don't know if people are aware of this. I had to tell my accountant this. But also on your U.S. taxes, there is a box, I believe, and he confirmed. Because there is a box where it says, do you have bank accounts in a foreign country? You have to check that box, yes. So I don't know, maybe the IRS goes and says, okay, he checked yes, so let's go confirm that it didn't hit $10,000. Nowadays with, let me put it this way, when I was a liaison to FinCEN, systems, artificial intelligence, ways of detecting whether you were in violation, that technology wasn't there yet. Now it's there. I can't tell you how it is now because I'm no longer there. I was there back in 2006, 7, 8, 9. So it's been a while. And technology has really moved forward, especially digital technology. But, the best thing to do, and I'm going to tell you this right now, whether Kuru Paul said you need one or I say you don't need one, just go to the bank and ask them what they require. And ask them, do you need a social security number? You can give them your social security number. Do you need the actual card? Maybe you just need your social security number. I have no idea because I already have my bank account. And here's and you know what? This brings up the perfect thing that I always say. My personal experience is not going to equal your personal experience. I'm already seeing people who's had a personal experience where they had to give their social security number, and I didn't. Now, I can say what I've already said. Your social security number or your social security card has no legal basis here in Mexico for anything. If they want your social security number and it's a bank that's based out of the United States or has a U.S. branch, maybe they require it as part of their policies. But as far as Mexican law, no. And you don't need one to get your RFC. I know that for sure. Bank accounts, I've heard all sorts of things from, we accept temporary residents, but we accept permanent residents, but don't accept temporary residents. And there's no reason why not to accept a temporary resident. You're a resident. You should have the rights. But some banks, I think 2 travelers had this issue. One of them was a temporary resident. So, oh no, we're going to freeze your account because you're a temporary resident and we don't give it to. And the banks are a different animal. And actually what I tell you, if I tell you the bank's going to require this, one bank may require it and the other bank won't. And also the other thing that I need to warn everybody about, and especially with Kuru Paul, that he has old videos out there, what was valid a year ago on a video he made a year ago may not be valid today. Same thing with me. A video that I did a year ago may not be valid today. So make sure you keep up to date. Just because I did a video a year ago is saying that the temporary residency requirements were, I don't know, I'm just using a hypothetical situation, are $2,000 a month doesn't mean today that they're $2,000 a month. So, and Mexico is changing. The days of, they've been doing that for the past 15 years, or I've lived here for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. They've always done it this way. Those days are gone. We have a totally different political party in power right now. That same party's going to, as a matter of fact, the old days of everything change, nothing changes and everything stays the same are going away. Because right now we have a new president, new party got into power, a new party that's never been in power before. And it's going to continue that way. We're going to have the first woman president, like I said before. And things are going to be changing. They've been, the whole immigration system got overhauled with the new president. Things in immigration that never happened before started happening. You just never know. And we're going to have a new president coming up now. He's going to get elected. So we don't know what's going to happen with all of this stuff. Regularization can go away, or regularization could become a permanent program. We don't know. We got a new president. Ralph, maybe that requirement has been relaxed, but the U.S. government closely watches your money and other countries, including Mexico, because of drug smuggling. Yeah, it's also Ralph. I'm not going to lie. The U.S. is what they call a tax predatory. They also are one of the few countries that taxes worldwide income. So they do keep an eye. I will say that. Hey, Cindy, I'm sorry. And actually, I'm sorry I didn't get to schedule. I totally forgot yesterday. I had my in-laws over visiting, which I'm going to get off right now because it's been an hour and 38 minutes. So, Claudia, so true. Everything is changing very quickly in Mexico. This Vincent reporting is a big deal. I'm working on Portuguese residency, which requires bank account in Portugal. Some Portuguese banks will no longer open accounts for U.S. citizens. That is true, Federica. Some banks won't even deal with U.S. citizens because they don't want to deal with the request. It is a big deal, and it became a real big deal with the Panama. In fact, that if you look at the Panama Papers, go Google it if you haven't heard of it before. But that's what kicked this whole thing off. It was basically about a bunch of people that were hiding their money in Panama, and there was a bunch of new laws that were passed because of it. And actually, a lot of these reports have been around for years, but let me just say they started getting very. Actually, I believe the elections, the new president will be starting next year. But I believe the elections are now in July, if I'm not mistaken. The new elections should be in July. The front runner, actually, let me put it this way: the two front runners are women. So Mexico is going to have the first woman president in the history of Mexico. So that's going to be one thing. The second thing is the front runner, the one that's in front, also being endorsed by the current president, is the one that's from the same party. Actually, the same thing, one thing that I've also said is probably what's going to happen. The Minister for Foreign Relations, Ebrard, I guess the Secretary of Foreign Relations is probably, if the person, the front runner, gets elected, he'll probably still be the Minister of Foreign Relations if he doesn't move somewhere else within the government. So we may not see a lot of changes in immigration, and we may not see a reduction or the UMA that I've been hoping for, because we're going to have probably the same exterior relations policies as before, maybe. I know that Mark and I did a video on getting our RFC and what was required. Yeah. And it's a pretty easy process. The hard process is getting the appointment and getting in the queue. And then the other thing that I had a problem with when I did my RFC is that I got in the queue, but I did it here in Monterrey. And for some reason, they say, we'll send you an email. And I decided to check because I was checking. And nothing. And I think it even gave me what number I was in the queue. One day I was number 5,000 and the next day I was number 100. So I said, I better check. One day I check on a Sunday night and it says, your appointment is tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, I never got an email. So I went to my appointment. I got my stuff done. And then the following day on Tuesday, or 2 days later, I'm not sure if it was Tuesday or Wednesday, I got the email. Oh, by the way, you have an appointment back on Monday for your RFC. So the system was so overloaded at the time that the emails weren't getting sent out in time. I don't think it's that overloaded now, but always keep track of that queue to make sure where you're at. I'm going to sign off for now. I've gone way over my limit. I hope this was information was useful. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Thank you once again. I always have a great audience. I always have a great amount. And I always have the beautiful thing about all of this is that I always have great discussions going on here. So no matter what, you know, like I said, I maintain these great discussions, and I really thank you all for giving me the opportunity to be able to have these discussions with you. And you guys, you are very interactive, and you know, yes, I talk a lot, but very interactive, great questions. And like I said, until next time, we'll see you next week. And until next time, stay safe and stay informed.